Good morning, spiritual companions. Today we are reading God, the Substance of All Form by Joel S. Goldsmith. Continuing Chapter 11, States and Stages of Consciousness. Page 135. The Mystical State of Consciousness. Throughout all ages, however, it has always been known that, in addition to the material and the mental, there is a third and higher consciousness, spiritual consciousness. The consciousness attained by the mystics of the world, by those who have achieved conscious oneness with God. Mysticism is any teaching or religion which acknowledges the possibility of conscious union with God, conscious oneness with God. In its correct sense, mysticism recognizes the ability to receive, without benefit of outside aid, a communication from God, to receive direct guidance, to commune with God. There is nothing of the occult, nothing of the mysterious in mysticism. Correctly understood, mysticism is the language of all metaphysical teachings, because it is the teaching of conscious oneness with God. The mystical state of consciousness, conscious oneness with God, is the highest state there is. In that state, the conscious thinking mind is merely the vehicle for the mind of God, the one universal wisdom which individualizes itself as your mind and my mind. It is much the same as what may happen to an artist if, in his higher moments of illumination, he should conceive a painting of rare beauty. He would go to the canvas to crystallize his vision, and this would be done with the aid not only of his hands, but of his human mind as well, through his knowledge of color, perspective, and his knowledge of the technique of painting. Through those skills, he would execute the idea that came to him from his perception of the infinite spiritual sense of being. In the same way, the tone, melody, or harmony a composer embodies in his work really comes out of the infinite, out of the universal consciousness, and it individualizes itself as the work of some composer. But that composer would have to sit down and, with the technique, skill, and knowledge of harmony and musical theory that he had developed individually through what we call the human mind, he would translate his idea into a piece of music that could be played by anyone skilled in the art of the particular musical instrument for which it was intended. The greatest mystic of all time was John, the beloved disciple, and it was he who wrote, "And the Word was made flesh and dwelt among us." The true mystic is not a visionary in the sense of being impractical, and this teaching is not that of a visionary who sits with his head in the clouds, although that too is permissible and important if his feet are firmly planted on the ground while his head is in the clouds, so that which seems intangible or visionary to sense really becomes tangible as form and demonstration. In this spiritual state of consciousness, you do not idly dream, but you do have visions. You do receive ideas. These you do not tell to the ordinary man on the street, because the natural man receiveth not the things of the Spirit of God, for they are foolishness unto him. Neither can he know them, because they are spiritually discerned. Rather, do you hold them in your own consciousness, always working toward their fulfillment, until ultimately you receive proof that the Word does become flesh. It becomes tangible. It becomes visible. It dwells among us as demonstration. In the infinite way of life, we are always striving for a higher realization of true being, for the highest sense of spiritual understanding that can be attained, and it is that toward which we are all walking, and then watching as it becomes tangible and visible in our experience. Seeing spiritually is very different from seeing psychically. When we are aware of psychic experiences, such as seeing colors or seeing visions, even though they may have some application to our human experience, that is, they may aid in prophecy, or may serve as warnings, or may even be guides, remember that they are still entirely on the psychic or mental level of consciousness. These psychic experiences have nothing to do with the world of spirit. In spiritual literature, you never find references to these as being spiritual experiences. Such references are found only in psychic or occult literature, or in literature on the mental plane. The real and unreal universe. When we first come into metaphysics, we learn about the real world and the unreal world, about the real man and the unreal man. For a while, it is probably necessary that we make this distinction between what appears to us as a mortal or human being and the ideal type of man, that which we call the Christ man, the highest ideal of individual being conceivable. When we are on this path as neophytes or even as initiates, we may make that distinction and speak of, in reality, the real man or the real universe. Jesus said, "My kingdom is not of this world," which might set up in our thought the sense that there are only two worlds. This, however, is only a temporary means in order to separate our thought from the belief that what appears to us as a sick or sinning mortal human being is God's creation, so that in the beginning of our study and practice, we may be able to look out upon this human world and say, "Thank you, Father. I know you never made this." As a matter of fact, God did not make what we see, because what we see is not what is really there. We see only our concept of what is there, and God did not make that. That is formed by our environment, with a little heredity mixed in, plus our education or lack of it, and then by our human experiences in life. For example, the person who has been robbed a few times does not trust anybody in the world, just as the person who has been deceived over and over again no longer believes in anyone. Or it may operate as the other extreme. The person who has never had anything but the most harmonious experiences, the most beautiful home life, and has known only people of integrity, never believes that there could be dishonesty, or that there could be people who would intentionally harm others. In every case, the concepts entertained by these people have been colored by their environment and experience. The same applies to each one of us. The concepts we entertain of the world and all there is in it are molded by our environment, hereditary influences, and the education we have or do not have. All of these factors contribute to molding the concepts we hold of our universe. The picture before us of human good and of human evil is the unreal world that we hear about in metaphysics, which most metaphysicians interpret as a world out here which is unreal, or a man out there who is not real, who is not the Christ man. This is not true. The only unreality about this universe and about man is that we are seeing only our concept and not what is actually there. In this period of our advance from the human to the divine, some of the schooling that we must have to further our spiritual unfoldment is the realization that what the five physical senses testify to is not reality. It is because of this that metaphysical literature refers to a real world and an unreal world, a real man and an unreal man, a material man and a spiritual man. End of section. End of today's reading.